What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez.
And Matthew Messick.
And this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Profits Over Wages podcast, where we do weekly interviews with highly successful business owners and entrepreneurs. We discuss life, business, and entrepreneurship to bring forward the lessons learned from success and failure, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. On episode 53 of the podcast, we sit down with Carl Gordon Moose. He has 30 years of experience in commercial real estate and 20 years of practice in the success principles of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He is an author, speaker, and guide of the Find Your Focus personal growth and professional development program. On this episode, we talk about how to find your focus, the 6 ghosts of fear and how to manage them, and we dive deep into the 13 main principles of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Enjoy the show. So, Moose. Is it really
do people call you Moose?
Most people call me Moose. That's correct, yeah.
How did that come about?
It's my last
His
name.
name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you were just like a nickname.
No, I inherited it from my dad.
I thought it was like a nickname or something.
No, it's so funny because I play hockey with a bunch of guys that think that's my nickname.
Yeah.
And,
That's a dope name to have in the back of your jersey.
It was a good name for me, yeah. And a lot. I'm telling you, I've known guys for 10, 15 years. They like, I don't know what his name is. It's Moose, Yeah.
What else? I just met you, and I'm like, I'm gonna call him Moose.
Yeah.
Without asking him.
That's good.
So, anyways, Moose. For people who don't know who you are, what you do, should give us a little bit backstory. Right?
Sure. Yeah, I do a couple different things. I'm a consultant. I work in commercial real estate. I've been doing that for a long time. I owned properties at one point. I worked for a bank. I was a broker. So I have a practice there. I've got a handful of clients, mostly buyers, people that own property that are either reconditioning them, repositioning them, or looking to do something with them. But I also developed a program called Find Your Focus, and this came out of my own experiences, not only in my hockey career, but, my relationships in my commercial real estate career, but just with the study that I've done. And I'm a big fan of the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
That was written by, you guys, I'm sure you've heard of it.
I've read it a couple times.
Yeah.
I think the first time I didn't really get it.
Well, it's interesting.
I had to read it a couple times.
It's interesting because in the book itself, Napoleon Hill, who wrote it back in the early 1900s, he tells her, read it 3 times. He said, you're not going to get it the first time. So I've read it dozens of times, and I've actually developed a program around that. I worked with Bob Proctor, which a lot of people know from The Secret.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the white-haired guy looks like Moses. Well, that's Bob Proctor. And Bob, Bob's 85 years old. I worked with him for about 3 years. He personally coached me, and he worked with Napoleon Hill. He's on the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And so, through the study of that book, there were gaps. So I started looking at my own life. Where have I been successful? And when I've been successful, I've been focused. When I'm less successful, I've noticed I was less focused. And I use the analogy of like the receiver, the football player. He's in the end zone. He's wide open. The quarterback throws him a pass. It's coming right to him, and he drops the ball. And everyone's like, "Oh,
butter hands."
Exactly. Well, what happened though? He lost focus for a nanosecond, right? And he drops the ball. Well, that happens to all of us. It doesn't really matter where you are, what business you're in. Life happens. You lose focus and you drop the ball. So that's the genesis of this whole program. It's called Find Your Focus, and it's about finding, maintaining, and sustaining your focus, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, or no matter what industry you're in.
When did you start doing that?
Well, I've been doing this for about 20 years, but it's within the last 9 months that I rebranded it as Find Your Focus, because prior to that, I was working under the Think and Grow Rich name. But I got in touch with some guys at the foundation, the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and I wrote a book. It was going to be entitled Think and Grow Rich for Girls. And, I called them to get permission, and they said, sorry, we can't allow you to do that because it's copyrighted, right? And it's the property of the foundation. So I had to pivot a little bit, and that's when I was talking to my publisher and some other marketing people, and they said, well, what's it all about? And I said, it's really about focus, so that's when I rebranded it as Find Your Focus. And if you notice on my business card, I'm your focus guy. So I'm marketing myself or branding myself as your focus guy, because the whole idea is my focus is your focus. If you're doing this program, I'm really not focusing on what I want to get out of it. It's more what you want to get out of it. So it's my focus becomes your focus.
So how'd you originally get into that? Like,
Yeah, because you've been doing it for 20 years, so it was a long,
like what brought it about?
Yeah,
Like, why not the 9 to 5?
Well, my problem is I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I'll tell you a real quick funny story. My dad was, a Depression age guy. I was 12 years old. I wanted a new pair of skates, right? And my dad said, well, you could buy a used pair of skates. And I'm like, I don't want to use a pair of skates. And he's right. And he said, well, I'll give you $20 because at the time, I'm talking about back in the 70s, just a long time ago, you could buy a pair of skates for $60, right? And he said, well, I'll give you 20 because that's what the used ones are. And I was like, I was pissed off about it. So I went to my mom, who's she's the, it's the rich dad, poor dad. Well, my dad grew up, in poverty. My mom grew up, she was wealthy. So I went to my mom and my mom said, well, make a deal with your dad. Every dollar you earn, he'll match it, right? And go get a job. So, 12, 13 years old, I went down to the restaurant that just opened and started washing dishes. Well, next thing you know, I'm making $250 a week. And I come in with my paycheck, my dad, and I said, well, you got to match it. And he made a deal, so every nickel I made, he gave me a nickel. So nice. The light bulb went off and I said, why am I going to work for, everybody else was making minimum wage. I was making twice the minimum wage because my dad said, show me your paycheck and I'll, so I've always had that mindset, and I've worked for people. I've worked for corporations. I've worked for banks, but it never lasted long because, like you guys, you know that no one's going to pay as much as what you're worth except yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So how I got into the Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich is when I met Bob Proctor. I met Bob Proctor about 20 years ago, and I did a program with him. I paid him 6 figures. I paid him a lot of money for a year-long program, but it was worth every penny. And that's when I really got into it. And then for the next 2 years, I worked with him.
What was the original program?
It was called The Big Table.
Okay.
And it was the first program that Bob did like this. It was a year-long
like a
program.
Mastermind?
Well, a little bit more than that. It was a year-long program. It was him, another individual named Laurel Langemeyer.
Yeah, I met her.
Yeah, you know Laurel, right? Yeah. Laurel was just getting started. And then another guy, he was a high-powered attorney out of New York named Mark Meyerdirk. So the three of them got together. And what we would do is it was a year-long program. Every quarter, we would go to a different place. I think we started in Dallas. We spent a weekend in Dallas, in New York, then Chicago. And then we went to Aspen. And we'd spend the whole weekend, and we were, 5-star accommodations. It was over $100,000. It was $125,000, but it was, you got a lot out of it. And we were also in a room with 22 other people that could write a check for $100,000. So the networking was pretty good.
Right. Cause when it's something like that, like people always wonder, like, why do people pay 6 figures to like join like a golf club or like something like that? Yes, you're paying for the golf club or like the place, but you're also paying to have access to people who could also afford to pay $100,000 for a membership. So it's like,
absolutely,
you're for exclusivity, really. For
absolutely,
networking.
And the people I met were phenomenal. 4 of them became partners of ours. They were not. One was a doctor, one was a lawyer, the other one was a trust fund kid. They wanted to get into real estate. We were the people that knew real estate, so. We partnered with them because we developed, over that year, we developed a relationship. We ended up buying 6 buildings with those people, So nice. It was worth every penny. Not to mention the mindset training.
Oh yeah.
So let's go back because you obviously had to do something before that to be able to afford a 6-figure check.
Yeah.
Like because you
just washing the dishes and taking him all the money. What do you mean?
Your dad matched you.
I washed a lot of dishes.
Because you've been in commercial real estate for 30 years, right? So let's talk about that side of things.
So we were so how I got into commercial real estate is I wanted to buy a condo. Right. So I figured, I'm going to get my broker's license. Right. And this was a while back. I figured instead of paying someone else a commission, I was going to, right? I never had an intention of starting a real estate company or anything. Well, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I was in the real estate business, right? And that was while I was still working for LaSalle Bank. I was a banker doing apartment lending.
Gotcha.
So I saw how all these deals worked out. I saw how all these guys, that started with nothing now had hundreds of millions of dollars in Lincoln Park and Rogers Park and all over the place. And I was the banker that used to go to the closings. All the other bankers would sit around and wait for the people to walk in the door. I was the guy that was always at the closings because, as you guys know, that's where things happen, right? That's where you learn. That's where you see how people get creative. So that's where I got the bug. And then, I had one client that just kept saying, hey, why don't you start buying some property? You own a condo, but you don't own any buildings. You lend us all this money for these buildings, but you don't have any yourself. Yeah. So make a long story short, I went out, took his advice. We bought an 18-unit building down on Garfield, right? That was our first building. And then we just, over the course of about 2 years, we bought 22 buildings, and they were all 10 units up to, I think 28 was the biggest one. And just, I got into it, and I was making good money. Actually the biggest deal I ever did was an assignment. We put together 24 lots on the west side, put them all under contract, and then assigned it to a developer. That was the biggest deal personally the biggest deal I ever did. So I had some some pizza money, if you know what I mean. So, nice. This came about, this opportunity to work with Bob, and I threw my hat in the ring, and it was probably one of the best things I ever did. And he was the one that really, the first time I got the book Think and Grow Rich, I was in high school. My hockey coach gave it to me, and if I would have read it and applied it back then, I would have had a whole different hockey career, you know what I mean? Right. But I didn't, because I wasn't ready for it. Well, when Proctor gave it to me again, and basically, led me through the program, it really took, I really got into it. And then, so how I got into leading programs myself, if you've ever read the book, in each and every chapter there's exercises, that you can do, practical exercises. So I just extracted those, put them in a workbook for myself. So it made it easier. So I can, this is what I'm going to do. And one of my friends saw it and said, wow, that's really awesome. Could you make me a copy of it? I'm like, yeah, I'll make a copy. And a month later he said, dude, you should really teach. I don't know if he said dude, but you know what I mean. He said, you should, he might have said dude. Yeah. It was the big Lebowski. He said, dudester. No, he said you should teach, you should teach a course on this. If I put 6 or 8 people in the room, will you lead the class? I said, sure. Yeah, if you guys pay me, I will, which they did. So there's probably almost 1,000 people I've led through this material. Right now nice. we just finished one up on Wednesday. I got another one starting next week. We're doing that telephonically. I've got one in Chicago.
It's a 12-week thing, right?
13.
13 weeks.
Yeah, because it goes with the 13 principles. And then
what are the 13?
Do you want to dive? Yeah, let's dive deep into it. Since you've read it, how many times have you said?
Share focus.
Dozens. So the first chapter is desire. Talks about that's the starting point of all achievement, right? And he's got an exercise. It's called the 6-step desire formula, and it actually takes you through and it identifies what you want, what you're going to give in return, when you're going to get it, what your plan is, and then some other things, right? So that's the first chapter. The second chapter is chapter on faith. Doesn't have anything to do with religion. Oh, by the way, these chapters, people think it's an investment book. It's not. Not a single one of the chapters has the word money in it, right? So the second chapter is faith. Talks about visualizing something that hasn't happened yet, like this room you guys are in, this building, right? You walked in, it was a vanilla box. At some point,
we did put it on paper of how we wanted the layout.
Actually, you want me to show you? Yeah, I have it in my idea notebook.
I love it. In your notebook. There you go.
We visualized it, and then we built it out over 3 months.
When we came in, and this is what it looked like.
That's awesome.
I drew it out. It looks a little bit different because obviously, it's got to be practical.
Yeah.
But that was the idea that I came up with.
Where's the Ferrari parking lot? Where's that?
We got a couple spots in the back.
Yeah, but the point is, it's faith. You guys had faith that you could do it, right? And so the second chapter is all about faith. The third chapter is called autosuggestion. It's the law of autosuggestion. It's your self-talk. What do you say to yourself every day?
Affirmations.
Right? Exactly. Positive affirmations and just what your self-talk is, right? And how it talks about the subconscious mind and how you could talk yourself in or out of anything. You know what I mean? Because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between true and false. It doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. And so you can talk yourself. It can't go check your bank account, or it can't go and see how many closings you had. You can convince yourself of anything, right? And that's the third. The third chapter is the law of autosuggestion. Fourth chapter is specialized knowledge. It talks about you don't have to have all the knowledge in the world. You just need to know where to find it. Right. And it's specialized knowledge. It talks about general knowledge and specialized knowledge. And then I can go through all the chapters.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
because
we got time.
Just for people who haven't read it before, and you always hear oh, you got to read Think and Grow Rich, you got to read Think and Grow Rich. But most people haven't, so I kind of just wanted to dive deep into it.
Sure.
So people get an idea of how powerful the book really is. I'm actually gonna read it after this.
You should.
Yeah, again.
Yeah, it's. Well, the funny.
It'll be the third time.
The funny thing is, every time I read it, I'm so familiar with it. I can read that book in one sitting because I know what's coming, and it's a book full of great stories, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Let's go through the chapters. I'll tell you the origin of the book, because it's pretty interesting, actually. So the fourth chapter is specialized knowledge. Talks about, you don't need to know everything. Usually the people with the knowledge are not the ones that benefit from that knowledge, right? It's the people that apply that knowledge. And you guys have all heard, knowledge is power. It's not. It's the application of that knowledge that's the power, right? So he talks all about that. So the next chapter is imagination. It talks about how you can close your eyes and imagine anything, and it's a very powerful mental tool. I think it was Einstein said the imagination is more powerful than knowledge, because knowledge is limited, but the imagination isn't. Your imagination, you can think of anything, right? The next chapter is called organized planning. Talks about leadership, talks about business planning, talks about all different types, and it has some really good exercises in that about to illustrate how being organized can really move you forward. The next chapter is persistence. Talks about how you've got to just stay focused on your goal, on your desire, and move through any obstacles, because there will be obstacles. So that's the next chapter. Next chapter is decision. Decision is the mastery of procrastination. If you have a big enough desire and you decide to go for it, and you have faith, and you know where to find the knowledge to do it, you're persistent. Procrastination goes right out the window, because you're so focused on getting that done that you get out of bed in the morning and you get it done. So that's that chapter. The next chapter is called transmutation of energy. Talks about the energy that you have and how people perceive you, your self-image, those types of things, and how important that is. The next chapter talks about the mastermind, how surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are working at the same for the same purpose, same goal, will get you further than working by yourself, right? We've all heard that. You can go fast by yourself, but you go further with others, right?
Definitely.
So that chapter is all about the mastermind. The next chapter talks about how the brain works, how the brain is a transmitting and receiving station. It's really a powerful tool that most people don't even know how to use, and he talks about that. The next chapter is the subconscious mind. Talks all about how powerful our subconscious minds are. And it's funny, that chapter and autosuggestion are the two shortest chapters. So I usually have people read those together because they go hand in hand. Okay. And he talks about how understanding those two chapters it's kind of the center of the hub. All the other principles are around that, autosuggestion, your subconscious mind. And then we go into the sixth sense, which is the keys to the kingdom of wisdom, basically your intuition. Your spider senses, whatever you want to call it, your gut. Yeah. And, we all know that, right? I mean, how many times have we been in a closing or whatever and said, something just doesn't feel right, or, they're trying to pull a fast one or whatever,
you can't really explain it.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling.
Exactly. Well, you hit it right on the head. That's where we operate on a emotional level, on our feelings, right? And what I found is 9 times out of 10, my intuition's correct. Even when I second guess it, I look back and go, you know what? I was right.
Yeah.
So that's that chapter. And the final chapter it's called the 6 Ghosts of Fear. And it talks about the 6 human fears, which we all have. And they're, understanding those, you never really conquer your fears. All you can do is manage them, right? And the fears are, the first fear is the fear of criticism, right? I mean, people say, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking. Well, you're not really afraid of public speaking.
It's an internal thing.
You're afraid of getting criticized, right? You're afraid of getting judged, right? And he talks about what the origin of all these are. The next one is fear of poverty, which is also fear of success. One of the things I've struggled with is every time I've been successful, either in my relationships or my career, my hockey career, whatever, I self-sabotage, right? So I get to a certain level, and then I subconsciously sabotage. So I'm not afraid of poverty. You could take everything away from me. I have no fear of that whatsoever. But with great success comes great responsibility, right? So without knowing this, in the past, I would get to a certain level of success. I'd sabotage myself because I didn't want to take on any more responsibility, right? So he talks about that, the fear of poverty and the fear of success, which are the same thing, just polar opposites, right? The third one is the fear of loss of love or affinity, right? Losing your friends, losing your spouse, losing your kids, your parents, whatever. And then he goes in the fear of illness, right? So we all at some point have a fear of, we're going to get sick or not be healthy. The fear of old age, which eventually people get to, and then finally the fear of death. And he talks about how these 6 fears, which are human fears, they all have an origin. and they all have a derivative, right? There's an explanation of where they come from, and there's ways to get beyond them. He also talks about how fear leads to doubt, doubt leads to confusion, and confusion leads back to fear. And if you look at anywhere, yeah, it's a vicious circle, exactly. And if you look at anywhere in your life where you've been stopped, whether it's going up to a good-looking girl or a good-looking guy and asking them for their phone number or writing a contract on a building, there's usually fear, doubt, and confusion at play, and it's usually in the background. And it takes a lot of work to actually get to the point where you can identify that. And you know what the funny thing is? I've been doing this so long, it happens to me 4 or 5 times a day. And because I'm aware of it, I can stop myself and say, "Oh, that's what's going on here. This is the fear, doubt, and confusion about this situation is what stopped me." And right before we started this podcast, you're like, are you
you're nervous?
You're nervous,
bro?
right? Well, and so what would that nervousness be? Criticism, right? Like I'm going to say something that you guys laugh at, or somebody that's listening says, but when you get beyond that, it doesn't mean it's not there. But when you can get beyond that, then you're not stopped. You're unstoppable. And what stops us is fear, doubt, and confusion. And it's all about awareness. So those are the chapters, of the book. And I've for the last 20 years I've studied. I read from that book every day, and there aren't too many people I met that can talk about that and trip me up, because I know the book pretty doggone good.
Yeah, I mean, you just went through every chapter, just like nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's I teach this stuff,
right?
And I'm in these conversations all the time, and you can't facilitate a class about decision, and be indecisive in your own life, or you can't talk about other people being persistent and you being a wimp, wimping out on something, right? So
you got to practice what you preach.
Definitely. And one of the biggest benefits of me facilitating this is I'm on a weekly basis. I'm in 3 or 4 conversations like this with people at different stages.
Yeah.
And it's really beneficial. So if I can just take another second. So the book was originally written, it took 20 years to write the book. Napoleon Hill interviewed 500 of the wealthiest, most powerful people of the day back in the early 1900s, right? And so it took 20 years to write the book, do the research, and he ended up with a book that was about 1,000 pages, which I've also read that and studied that. It's called The 16 Laws of Success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it available right now?
It's hard to find. But it's
I'll look for it.
Yeah, and here's why. He came back to the publisher, and the publisher said, "No one's going to read 1,000 pages, and it's really kind of a hard read." You know what I mean? It was his first go at it. So he took another 8 years, taking that 1,000 pages and knocking it down to about 250 pages, which became Think and Grow Rich, and that's been a very popular book. As a matter of fact, there's 47 different editions of it. And I like the original edition because it's the one that he originally published. It took 28 years from the time he did the research, 8 years of editing, and it was finally published in around, I think it was 1937, I think is when it was.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Gee.
So, and a lot of people, if you read the foreword, I mean, a lot of people point to this book and say, "This is what changed my life. This is what I'm successful now." I mean, people that you would know.
Is it easy to find the original one?
It's been a long time. I've got a manuscript of it, but you mean the original,
like the one that you're saying? You say it's been written. Like there's different editions, but you said the first one is like the best.
Oh, no, you can. Yeah, you can go on Amazon or whatever.
Okay,
just the original edition, right. But the 1,000-page, that was called The 16 Laws of Success. That's hard to find because it didn't really go into production.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a great book. And I did a lot of work with Bob. Bob used to have a saying. He'd say, find a person, find a book, and find a place. And what he meant by that was, find a person that you relate to, whoever that is, that you can relate to. It happens to be, for me, it's Bob Proctor because he was my mentor. He said, find a book. He said, I don't care if it's my book. I don't care if it's Think and Grow Rich. I don't care if it's the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, whatever. Just find something that speaks to you. And the third thing is every day find a place that you can just settle yourself, right? And, even if it's for 10 minutes, and, it may sound weird, but I do it in the shower. I take a shower every day, right? Well, that's my place.
That's your book?
No, it's called.
You got a waterproof copy?
It's called The Shower. No, that's my place. I mean, I'm there I take a shower every day. So for 10 minutes, I just settle myself, and people always laugh. Like, I don't want to hear about you taking a shower. But the point is, for me, it's just relaxing.
It's like that Seinfeld episode with Kramer. And you're in there like, cooking, like chopping vegetables and stuff.
No, I didn't see that one.
You should look it up.
Is that when he was the master of his own kingdom or something?
Something like that. There's a whole episode about him being comfortable in the shower.
That's great. No one's ever brought that up before, but
It's funny.
Kramer. So anyway, that's that's what. And I love doing the real estate stuff, but leading and facilitating these courses is really my passion. I don't mean to sound corny, but I really love it.
It feels like it is.
Well, and you know what the thing is? It's made a big difference for me. And I literally see people over the course of 13 weeks, which is, if you think about it, it's one
Not a
quarter.
long time.
It's a quarter. Yeah. It's one business quarter of the year, right? And people literally they change. I mean, they walk in looking differently because they're thinking differently. And it's not. Does it have something to do with my expertise? Yes, but it's more about the material. They really get into the material. And, the interesting thing is, you can read a book by yourself once, and you're going to forget 90% of it, right?
Yeah, sure.
You read it again with yourself, and you're still just bouncing the ideas around your head. But when you do it in a group, it takes on a totally different dynamic. And when you do it in a group where it's facilitated by somebody that knows the material, it just, everything accelerates. And that's my experience. And people, I don't really advertise. I don't do a lot of advertising. It's mostly word of mouth. People tell their brother or their business partner or whatever. And
so it all came from that first workbook that you made for yourself, that you gave it to your friend, and
that's
then
right.
It just kind of took off from there.
Yep, that's exactly right. And what I was doing when I did that was, I'm kind of that way. I'm a visual person, so I like you did. I love you got your work, your book right there. No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got one of those too, and you got your notes in there, right? And you can refer to it.
Just ideas, really. That's like my idea.
It's great.
I have a separate journal for like more deeper stuff.
This is misspelled.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's misspelled. I don't even look at it.
No, Ricardo, that's awesome though. I mean, it's something you can refer to. You can go back and look at. I've got one too. I got one. It's just a 3-ring little binder. I'll show it to you in a minute. Mm-hmm. It's got all kinds of stuff in there, and it's something you can refer back to, right? So that's the whole genesis. I went through it, and each and every chapter, I took out the exercises, and I created this little workbook, and I still use it today. I still use it.
And where do you do these classes? Like, how can people find out about it?
I'm by the end of the week. Oh my God, it is the end of the week. By the end of next week, the website will be done. So the website is yourfocusguy.com. And, there's going to be information on that. Certainly if anybody wanted to contact me, my email is my initials, CGM, Carl Gordon Moose, at yourfocusguy.com. And,
Just make it Moose.
Yeah. I probably should, right? I could easily do that.
Oh, yeah.
People remember that.
Oh, yeah, right. See, there you go.
You should rebrand your whole thing and just Moose Focus.
Moose Focus.
Don't lose focus.
Moose Focus. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah. Something like that, right?
He just rebranded it.
I know. I'm rebranding it again.
Yeah, there we go.
We're actually the masters of branding and marketing.
Okay, cool.
That's probably how you got here.
Yeah. No, that's a great. Listen, I'm all about ideas. I've got a lot of ideas. I'm not good at the marketing, and if any ideas you guys have, and my goal is to ramp this up. You ready for this? I mean, I want to create an iFocus. I don't want to. I am creating an iFocus community where people can say iFocus, because in my world, when you're focused, you're successful. When you're less focused, you're less successful. So my goal is to build a tribe or a community, iFocus community of 100,000 people. Because here's what I know: when 100,000 people get this information and understand how they can shift the way they think about their relationship, their finances, their profession, their health, their wellness, and their spirituality, it's just going to be a better world. And I know that sounds corny. I've got 3 kids. They're in their teens, right? What kind of world am I going to leave for them? Right. Well, if 100,000 people have gone through this and are part of this, and they get it, right, and they're practicing it, and they all affect 100 people, that's 10 million people. And so that's going to there's going to be some critical mass there. There's going to be an impact on the world. You know what I mean? So that's my inspiration.
So you just started the focus thing. Before that, it was the Think and Grow Rich seminars, right?
Yeah, before that, I was just
class.
It was really completely haphazard. It wasn't organized at all, and it was just me
Just talking.
Think and Grow Rich, yeah. Just
And now,
talking, right?
and now you're doing the focus.
Now I'm
thing.
taking showers and talking.
Moose showers.
Do you want to talk about your focus program? Because I mean, we talked a little bit about it when we met the other day at Tony P's event.
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned something about how I thought it was similar to that book by Gary Keller, The One Thing, and he says to just focus on one thing.
Right.
Because when you focus on just one thing at a time, that's when you get the most amount of results or extraordinary results, like he says.
Yeah, eat the frog, right?
Right.
Do the hardest thing first. And Gary, I've read Gary's book. Gary's obviously extremely successful, and I agree with that, and it plays into it. For me, it's finding your focus, maintaining that focus, and then sustaining it long term. And those are the tricks. Mm-hmm. And so, in the context of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, right? It's that first step, desire. The starting point of all achievement is what is it you really want? And we can all look at that. Like, why do I get out of bed? What's my purpose, right? And why do I do what I do? Why do I establish relationships? Why am I in the business I'm in? All these things. And when you keep asking that question, why, you get down to that emotional charge, that emotional thing that keeps us going, right? That allows us to be persistent and get to where we want to go. Because I believe that human beings don't do anything unless there's some emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, I can't remember what book I read or what it was. It talked about the same thing. So I probably won't even recommend the book from this, but it said to write your why or keep asking yourself why,
right?
Until so deep and for so long that by the time you got to it almost made you cry or something like that. I literally can't remember where I read it, but
it might have been the purpose of why. I think there's a book that's out there, but I agree with you because I go through that with people. Well, what do you want? I want to make $1 million.
Be rich.
What does that mean? Like, why do you want that? Right? Well, because I want to have a nice house. Well, why? And why do you want that?
You gotta be like a 2-year-old. Just why?
You know what?
Why?
And
Lambos.
But the kicker is, people after about the 6 or 7 whys, when they really, you see them, something happens because they really get it for themselves. So, like, you know what? That's why I want to do that. So for me, it's my purpose. My purpose is safety and security, satisfaction for myself, my family, my friends, and my community. That's my credo for the last 10 years. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. Doesn't matter what business I'm in. Doesn't matter what continent I'm on. Ask me 10 years from now. It's safety and security, satisfaction, comfort and pleasure for myself, my family, my friends, and my community. That's it. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm sitting here with you guys. You guys are now part of the community. Whether you're active or not is a different story. But, I'm expanding my circle of influence, right? Yeah. And that's what it's about. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
For safety and security, satisfaction for myself, my friends, my family, my community. That's it. And this is part of that. Everybody that goes through this course, and like I said, we have one starting next week telephonically for people that are not in Chicago, and then in Chicago. We do it. We're going to do it on the north side. There's an office loft that we meet. We meet 1 hour a week, from 6 to 7. We're going to do Thursday night in Chicago.
What do you do it? Like what neighborhood?
Division and Clark. I think that's where we're going to do it. Yeah. But, for example, I mean, hypothetically, if you had 6 or 8 people, we could do it here. We could bring people here. You know what I mean? And what's in it for you? I mean, not only participation, but also you're exposing people to your real estate office. So I've done it at law offices, insurance offices, mortgage companies. This manufacturer out in Elk Grove Village, I'm going out there every Tuesday morning to do it with his people. If
you want to host something here, you're more than welcome.
I may just take you up on that because we're looking for a place for Thursday nights at 6.
Yeah, we could fit 18 people here.
Right now we've got about 6.
Well, if they don't have a desk, you could fit like 40. No. But if they have a desk, 50. We can do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like this conference room would be perfect, and so we could talk about that offline. But
okay.
We follow the, each week week 1 is really introductions, but week 2 we're into the book. The homework is read the chapter, desire, and then come back that week and be prepared to talk about it. What do you want? Why do you want it? And share it with the group. And it's a conversation. I facilitate it, but it's not just me talking. It's a conversation. And then we go each week. We take the next chapter, right? And there's follow up material, and I email them summaries and that kind of stuff. And it's really powerful. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but when everybody, like for example, Wednesday we just finished. We were done at 7:00. We didn't leave till 9.
Nice.
because people were like, I don't want to, they didn't
want to go home.
They didn't want it to end, and
We're not leaving.
yeah, they were closing. They were shutting the lights off. They're like, "You guys got to go." So we went around the corner to Hopsmith and had a beer.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
But yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if let's talk about that offline. This space would be perfect, for that.
The only thing is not close to an L, but
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I mean, people get there. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's funny, like I said, I've probably put nearly 1,000 people through this. And, by the third or fourth week, people are into it. There's some people that come all excited, right from the get-go. And, sometimes there's people that are, a little skeptical, you know what I mean? But by the third week, exactly.
crossing
They
their
cross their arms, sit back, and don't
Close
say
up
much.
completely.
Exactly. By the third week, it's like everybody's in. You guys ever see the I love this. It's the National Geographics where you see all the penguins. You ever see this where a million penguins or 100,000 penguins, and they're all sitting on the edge of the cliff waiting to jump in, and none of them go in until the
first one.
first one goes in, and then they all go in, right? You ever see that? It's that's what it's like. Everyone's just standing there on the edge, and then the one penguin goes in, and then the entire herd or whatever they're called.
Herd mentality.
Yeah.
Or
Everyone needs a
herd
leader.
mentality.
Yeah. Social proof, right? Oh, that guy went in.
So what's next for you and everything that you're doing right now?
Well, I've written a couple books, one called Conquer Your World, and then the other is called Find Your Focus.
Let's talk about the first one. When did you write that one?
I finished that in 2018.
How long did it take you to write? Not 30 years?
No. Well, it took me about 4 years actually.
Wow.
2017, I took some time off, and I read exactly 188 books. I was just on a mission because I wanted to find the gaps. You know what I mean? And so I was just voraciously reading biographies. I was reading books about social change. I was reading, internet marketing books. I was reading books about history. And I read 180. I ended up reading 188 books. And people say, "Well, why'd you stop at 188?" You know what I found? The more I read, I was just kind of picking up the same thing. You know what I mean?
The same thing said a different way.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm a big Eckhart Tolle fan. I'm a fan of Jack Canfield. Really good books, and a whole bunch of people. You've probably never heard of before, but it got to a point where I said I don't need to read anymore. So then I went back and I started writing again.
What's the book about?
It's called Conquer Your World. It's basically about so each chapter, like chapter 1 talks about the one and only you, right? Mm-hmm. So like how you are a unique individual. Just the fact that we're sitting here listening to each other is a miracle if you really think about it, right? And so it talks about that. The second chapter talks about dichotomy and duality in life, and it talks about paradox and polarity, right? So like each chapter has, like the third chapter talks about, being, doing, and having. So those three principles. The fourth chapter talks about I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Toltecs. They were an ancient South American civilization that was
maybe in some documentaries.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
Exactly. They're kind of like the Aztecs and the Incas, but
yeah.
They had a very simple way of life. They had 4 agreements, and that chapter talks about those 4 agreements. And if you adopt those 4 agreements, it's really a powerful way to live your life. So each chapter, it's 11 chapters, and each chapter has, like the 8th chapter talks about the 8 communication stepping stone. So that's what it's about. And it's really a tool so you can wake up. I'm not going to conquer your world, Matthew, or your world, Ricardo.
You could try.
I don't even want to. I don't have a Ferrari.
Good choice.
I don't have a Ferrari. I'm not fast enough. But I'd never catch up to you on that thing. But it's about conquering your own world. You wake up in the morning and say, what am I going to do today? What's that one thing, like Gary Keller talks about? Like, what am I going to get that one thing done? And everything else is just going to fall into place. So that's really what it's about.
And can people find it on Amazon?
No, it's at the publisher yet. We haven't published it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the goal is to get that done by this summer.
And what's the other one?
The other one's just you Find Your Focus Guide. It's just a guide that talks about finding, maintaining, and sustaining your focus with the backdrop of Think and Grow Rich. And then the 4 basic pillars of that program, which are the starting point in my mind is awareness, right? If you're not aware of something, there's nothing you can do about it, right? So that's number 1. Second one is control. So things you're aware of, you can control, right? The third pillar is direction, right? When you're aware of something, you can control it, and when you control it, you can give it direction. And then the last one is just meaning and significance, right? So, because I honestly believe a lot of people walk through life completely and totally unaware of what's really going on in their life. So when you can gain a level of awareness, right, you have control, direction, and then you're going to, there's going to be more meaning and significance in everything you do.
Are you going to self-publish these?
They are self-published, yeah.
Okay.
I'm working with a woman named Melissa Wilson. She's published 11 books, authored or co-authored. She's got a publishing company called Networlding. And she also has a coaching program. If you want to author a book, she can,
Yeah, because who was telling us that you could self-publish books on Amazon pretty easily?
A lot of people.
Yeah. Like they'll print them just like as you go. Like
it's a whole.
Now it's so much easier to get something done.
Oh,
Before it was like you got to call like a million people to get one person to say yes.
Well, not only that, you have to. I mean, in the old days, you'd have this whole office full of books. You'd have cases and cases of books that you paid for. And with Amazon, you do it Kindle. And there's all kinds of with technology today. Forget it. I mean, I'll tell you what. If you guys are, it's not that hard to write a book. I'm telling you right now. If you guys could probably write a killer book, the two of you guys, with your experiences.
People have told us, and we have thought about like the fact, kind of like not Napoleon Hill, but like just the fact that we've interviewed so many people so far, and we can put something together.
Well, that's exactly what he did. I mean, he just interviewed people.
Yeah,
he didn't have a podcast, but I'm telling you right now, it would
have been an awesome podcast to put that together.
Well, the funny thing
like
is,
Henry
so
Ford
here's what you got to, Andrew Carnegie. Go to YouTube and look up Napoleon Hill. He's got this. He talks like this. He's got this squeaky little voice. It's pretty comical.
Yeah,
and he actually does a audio where him reading the book, and it's
nice.
I mean, it's pretty funny. But no, you guys. And so to answer your question, the goal is to get those out by the fall.
That's right.
And then what's the other thing? It gives you credibility. You know what I mean? It gives you something to talk
credibility.
about.
You could say you're an author, and all that stuff. Do you want to go into the questions, or not, or you have any?
Well, since you read so many books, 188 in a year, what are your top 10?
Top 10
that you like the most?
Well, Think and Grow Rich. There's another book, I don't remember the author, is called The Holographic Universe, which is pretty cool. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. There's someone else who wrote The Power of Purpose. I
found that one very like mystical.
He's out there.
I got into it like the audiobook, and this is a little much for me right now.
Yeah,
and I just skipped it and went somewhere, read something else.
Yeah,
Moose is mystical. So you like that?
Wow, that rhymes, man. Another mystical moose.
It alliterates.
There you go.
Mystical moose.
There you go.
Mystical moose.
But I'm a big fan. Eckhart Tolle's written some good books, and he is out there.
I might have to give it a second try, but at the time and place I was at the time, it was a little too out there for me.
Well, you weren't in the now. You were somewhere else.
Very probably. Yeah.
He talks about that. I mean, that's a great book. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. There's one by Wallace Waddell. It's called Working with the Laws. That's an old book. James Allen wrote As a Man Thinketh. That's one of my favorites. B. Rand, what's her first name? Guinevere B. Rand wrote Your Invisible Power, which is a great book. R. Ron Hubbard, is that right? Or L. Ron Hubbard. What was his book?
Self-analysis?
No, not that. It was called Cybernetics.
Is that the Scientologist?
Yeah. It was kind of the beginning. I'm not that, but I mean, he's just
How much money did you pay?
Yeah.
How deep are you?
Yeah, exactly. I can't get out.
I actually just started watching
Tom Cruise.
Just started watching the documentary, Going Clear. It's fucking weird.
Oh, is that about that?
Dude, it's weird.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've heard.
It's mystical.
It's interesting.
It's the door locks. I hear the door lock click.
It's interesting, but like up to a certain point, it makes a lot of sense. But then after like the going clear part, it gets very strange.
I think they went over the top. But that book was written a while ago. It talks about the theater of your mind. And
was it cybernetics?
Cybernetics. It talks about the theater of your mind. It talks about how powerful your mind is, and where it's gone from there is a bit in left field.
Yeah,
for me. But anyway, those are some of the. I don't know if I got to 10, but those are some of them.
That'll suffice. See, I know big words.
Good.
I know big words.
To what do you attribute your success?
Well, it's interesting because a guy named Earl Nightingale, probably the best definition of success is, which is what I like, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, right? And if you break that down, it's like moving towards something progressive. progressive realization, something's happening, something real is happening, of a worthy ideal, something that's worthy of you, and an ideal is an ideal you fell in love with. So it's a journey. I'm not there yet. What gets me out of bed every morning is that thing I talked about earlier, my purpose. It's about my kids. It's about providing a better world for them. That's my inspiration. So, but journey, success is a journey, so I'm not there yet.
What do you wish you knew before you started?
I wish I knew you guys before I started. That would have helped a lot.
I don't think we were born then.
That's that hurt, man. That hurt.
My emotional intelligence is very low, so I think I just called you old.
That hurt. No, what I wish I know. It's. I made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think one of the best ways to learn is, what's the old saying? The best teacher is your last mistake, right? So, if I had to look back, I don't know if I could pin it on one thing, but I think my fears. I think if I could have zeroed in on my negative patterns, my self-sabotaging activity, and what I was afraid of, I think I would have gone a lot further in a lot of different areas of my life. And don't get me wrong, you guys. I've had a great. I'm 55 years old. It's been a great run. I've had a great time. I've done a lot of fun things, and one could say I've had a pretty good life. You know what I mean? Point being is, if I was in touch with some of those things, my negative patterns, my negative thinking, my fears, I could have done a few more things I probably would have wanted to.
What was the worst piece of advice that you ever got?
The worst piece of advice I ever got. Wow, the worst piece of advice I ever got. I can't think of it right now, but
that's a bad question. We could skip it.
No, it's just, what's coming to mind is don't be afraid. I think that's probably it. Where, I grew up in a world, I played hockey all my life. So it was, you can't show fear. Don't be afraid,
right.
And as young men, that's the mask we wear, right? Like, don't be afraid.
Macho.
Yeah. But looking back at this stage, it's like, now that I understand fear, that's probably some advice that I could have used without.
If you had one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be?
What would to give to them?
Yeah.
I think it would be, don't limit yourself. Like believe that you can achieve anything that you think of, that you apply yourself to, and don't let other people talk you out of your dreams, because as corny as it sounds, your dreams come true. And what are dreams? It's your imagination. It's like, what you want to do. And I hear so oftentimes, my mom and dad, as an example, there's a girl, a young gal, she wants to start a hotel chain, and she's in her 20s, super smart. She's in accounting. And she said, yeah. And she happens to be, Asian, so her parents are like just saying, oh, don't, no one's ever done that in our family. Why do you think you could do that? And I'm coaching her through that. I'm guiding her through that. I said, no. I said, if that's what you want to do, I believe you. I said, I don't have any reason not to believe you.
Right.
So,
anything you can conceive, can achieve.
Exactly.
If you believe.
Conceive, believe, and achieve, right? So I told her, this is what I told her. I said, listen, when you start to doubt your belief in yourself, believe in your belief, or my belief in you. I said, because my belief is, untarnished. So I said, when you start to doubt yourself, believe in my belief in you, because I believe you can do it. Yeah. I never listened to that conversation from your parents saying you can't do it, right? So, don't let that stop you,
They say never take constructive criticism from anybody that's not doing anything constructive in their lives.
Exactly. That's a good piece of advice.
Do you have a morning routine?
Yeah, I usually take a shower in the morning.
Oh, yeah, that's your happy place. You take like hour showers?
My happy place. No, they're not usually that long. But, I usually get up. I usually drink a couple glasses of water, because my day.
In the shower? No,
before I hit the shower, while the shower's warming up. But that gets my system going. I make believe it or not, as silly as it sounds, I make my bed every morning. It's just a habit. My dad was a military guy, and it's a habit, and it's so funny. About 3 weeks ago, I left my condo, and I forgot to make my bed. I actually turned around, went back upstairs, and made my bed because it sounds weird, right? But it's just like, for me, it's putting, it's subconsciously putting things in order. The other thing I do is I read my affirmations from my little book. I don't know if you've ever heard of Taoism. The Tao Te Ching, the book that was written 5,000 years ago. There's 81 verses, right? And I've paraphrased 40 of them, and every day I go through those, right? And so that's part of what I do in the shower.
What are some of them?
What some of the verses?
Yeah.
Well, there's 35,000 letters, so I've just paraphrased them.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the first one is the real meaning of life has no form and it has no limits. Right. That's one of them. The other is it doesn't discriminate. The rain and the sun fall on all of us equally. Right. There's a mysterious femininity to the world. In other words, the world is nurturing, right? The way doesn't have to be full to be fulfilled. So everybody doesn't have to believe in it for it to be fulfilled, right? So there's there's about 41 of them.
Nice.
And I could go through them all because I do it. Not only do I do it in the shower, it's part of my routine. The other thing is I do deep breathing. Believe it or not, just really deep breathing. You do 10 of those in a row, and it just settles you, and that's my form of meditation. I don't go to yoga class or meditation class. I kind of do it on my own, and I do that in the morning.
Nice.
Thanks for asking, by the way.
Do you have a favorite failure? Is there one that sets you up for future success?
Favorite failure. That's interesting. I'm divorced. So I look at that as a failure. And luckily, I married a wonderful woman, and I divorced a wonderful woman. We have a great relationship right now. We're raising 3 kids. So that really opened my eyes to a lot of things about who I was being, and I was being selfish. So when I went through that whole process, it really opened my eyes to the world doesn't revolve around me. And it's interesting because that's when I started leading these courses again. So that and I do consider that a failure. But Napoleon Hill talks about that. There's a difference between being defeated and failure. Failure is the first step of success. If you're not willing to fail, you'll never succeed, right?
Right, because you're not taking enough chances.
You're not taking chances. You're not experimenting. Yeah, and your failures, in every failure, there's a seed of equivalent success. In other words, when you fail, if you look, you could see the answer to how not to do it next time, right? And the famous story is Thomas Edison. They say he tried, 10,000 different filaments for the light bulb, right? To see, he got them all to light, but they didn't last, right? So the news guy said, well, why didn't you give up? He said, well, I didn't fail 999 times. I just figured out how not to do it, right? And that's, defeat is something different. Defeat is when you decide to quit. When you make a decision to quit, then you're defeated, right? But failure is just one step along the way. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Have you ever turned down a client, and so why?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've turned down a lot of clients. One example, one woman was going to register, and I said, when was the last time you did something like this? And she said, I just finished, a 6-month program last week. I'm like, oh, all right. And I said, you're ready to jump into another one? It ended up, over the last 3 years, she had done like 7 programs. And I said, you don't need another program. What you need to do is go back and start implementing some of this stuff.
You need to focus.
It's that mindset training forever without taking any action.
And
getting ready to get ready.
Exactly. A lot of people get into it. And I told her, I said, listen, I don't think this course is for you. And I said, I don't want to register you in this course, because I think what you really need to do is go out and start implementing, because you've got enough information, And years ago that happened with me. I was doing some commercial real estate training. Same thing. A woman had done this. Well, this just so happened to be another woman. Not that it had to be, but I'm just saying in this case it was. She had done all kinds of real estate classes. I said, well, how much property do you own? Oh, I haven't bought a property yet. I said, well, when was the last time you wrote a contract? She goes, I've never written a contract before. I said, you don't need any more training. I said, what you need to do is just go out and write 5 contracts. Just start writing contracts. Just get into the game. You know what I mean? So sometimes that's what people need. They just need to get off the sideline, get out of the stands, get on the field,
in the game.
and get in the game. Yeah. Well, some people aren't even in the stadium. You know what I mean? Forget about getting on the field. They got to get in the stadium first.
Thinking about going to the stadium. And that's why, not to make it about us, but that's why we started the mentorship program that we did in real estate. Because I feel like a lot of people are just looking for somebody to give them permission to do what they need to do.
Right.
You know,
That's a great way of looking at it.
Someone to hold their hand or someone to kick them in the ass.
No, that's a great
Either
way.
way.
That's a great way to validate their permission, right? To give them permission. That's a really good way of looking at it. And, that's a gift. I mean, that can change people's lives, right? I mean, really,
Yeah,
someone.
Well.
Absolutely. That's the fun part of it, And the other thing is, I'm a firm believer in that there's 28. I'll send it to you. It's the 28 laws, natural laws. One of them is the law of compensation. You will get compensated based on three things. You're providing something people need, right? You're good at it, and you're very difficult to replace. When you find those three things, providing something people need, doing it very well, and being difficult to replace, you will be very well compensated. I use Michael Jordan as an example, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loved to watch him play basketball, right? Everybody loved him. He was providing something people wanted. He was very good at it, and there was only one Michael Jordan. That's why he was so highly compensated. It's no different for you or for me, you or me.
Yeah.
Last one. What is one thing you find to be true that most people would disagree with?
Whatever the saying, whatever you believe is true, the opposite is also true. So whatever you think is true, the law of polarity, right? Whatever you think is true, the opposite is also true for somebody else, right? I just had this conversation this morning with somebody. They were telling me about something in real estate, and it was their opinion. And I said to them, I understand that you believe that's true, but the opposite of that is also true for other people, right?
Give us an example.
An example.
Yin and yang.
So some people can illustrate it and it becomes real in their mind.
An example. An example is for some people it's true that the government controls everything. For other people it's true that the government controls nothing.
Yes.
Well, I mean that's an example.
Yeah,
most people think it affects them who the president is, but other people believe that doesn't affect them whatsoever.
What if you're like, I need money to invest in real estate, otherwise I can't do anything?
Well, that's not true either. You don't need money.
Yeah.
We bought many houses with no money.
All of them.
Every building I bought, I used other people's money. We put partnerships together.
How many have you bought?
22.
Nice.
We're actually at 22 right now too. Thank you.
Good for you guys. That's awesome.
Awesome. All right, I think that's it for the questions. Where can people find your URLs and links and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter. It's all under Your Focus Guy. Soon to be Moose something or other.
Mystical Moose.
MysticalMooseFocus.com.
We'll work on that one. It's probably open, by the way.
Let's talk about the real one. YourFocusGuy.com.
So all my Twitter, all my social media is under Your Focus Guy. And then the website is www.yourfocusguy.com.
Okay.
And right now my email is my initial cgm@yourfocusguy.com.
But it's going to be Moose at YourFocusGuy.com.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to go. Yeah.
Moose at MysticalMooseFocus.com.
I love it. And then, as far as the course information, I can usually what I do is I email people and outline a little description of the course. Right now we have availability right now for both those classes.
So if anybody wants to go to it, email you at, what is it?
CGM@yourfocusguy.com.
Awesome. And you said the next one is when?
Well, we're starting the telephonic one next Saturday and
the
the in-person next Thursday.
Do you have a venue for that yet?
Thursday?
Yeah.
I think we might be doing it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
I'll talk to you guys about that.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thanks
all
for
your insight.
Yeah, thanks for the questions and the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time, guys. And that's it for another episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing before you head off, though. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us your thoughts on iTunes. It would really mean a lot and help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook at Profits Over Wages Podcast, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.